Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FMIS 101 webinar. I am your host, Dallin Dastrip. Today's topic, we're going to be going over 6 fleet management best practices that save time, money, and headaches. Like I said, my name's Dallin Dastrip. I'm one of the product managers here at RTA, essentially a leader in product strategy, and my focus is customer experience. Joining with me today is Nathan Schafer, one of our fleet success managers and a former fleet manager with over 25 years of experience, also accomplished CPFP and a CAFM. Excited to have Nathan on board. Hey, Nathan, how are we doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. And mic test there that we're in. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. So today's session agenda, as originally mentioned, we're going to be going over 6 best practices. Uh, Essentially, the goal is building a clear, repeatable process or processes within your shop, recovering hidden costs and warranties, and automating time and consuming tasks. First of all, just a couple of quick announcements because as we've learned, questions can come up. We want to make sure that everybody knows that down at the bottom of this meeting is both a Q&A and a question option. And so please feel free to throw any questions that you have into the chat or Q&A, and they'll either be addressed right away, or we will be covering questions at the very end as well. On top of that, we do have the copy of this meeting, this webinar on demand available after this meeting. And so we will be, keep your eye on your email as email copies will be going out and reminders. And then as our last point here before we dive in, the RTA Connect Fleet Manager Conference is September 26th or 22nd through 26th in Las Vegas, Nevada this year. We do have our standard rates for those that are registering going through August 31st. We do have limited space and seats are filling up quickly. And so please, anybody who is interested in attending the fleet management conference this year, we would love to have you there, get to know you, rub shoulders, and learn a little bit more about our fantastic industry. Before diving into the 6 best practices, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Nathan, and we're going to go over understanding your FMIS. What is it? What is the purpose? And how is it helping you?
Yeah, thanks, Dallin. So most of you, I would hope, are using an FMIS. I do still run into, some organizations that are using spreadsheets and paper. I always like to give this basic intro to FMIS and why we like to use them and what they're for. So, at its basic core concept, an FMIS or Fleet Management Information System is, a centralized digital platform to track, manage, and analyze, all aspects of your fleet. So parts, the shop operation, vehicle life cycle, and those kinds of things. So having a good FMIS enables a fleet operator to reduce cost, increase safety, right, extend vehicle life, and ensure regulatory compliance. All right, so we're using that FMIS to track the asset management, maintenance scheduling, work order and shop management, technician productivity and efficiencies, parts inventory and management. A lot of people are starting to use it for billing. All right, and then the last one, data management. That one's super important, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. All right, unfortunately, a lot of today's fleets are still using old practices and not leveraging technology, and this leads to poor and missing communication, frankly, and increased risk and mistakes and frustrations and drives cost. Believe it or not, I actually talked about a fleet with a coworker this week, about 300 assets, if I remember correctly, and they are still using spreadsheets
Ouch.
to manage everything, right? So you can only imagine the breakdowns and the missed PMs and things that they're struggling with. So a good FMIS will help you solve some of those issues, and we're going to jump into some best practices today, not only in fleet but with your FMIS to help mitigate some of that and those issues. All right, so I talked about data management and using data, and the first thing I want to really mention is using standard code sets or national code sets, standardization with the data. So we've all heard good data in, good data out, or bad data in, bad data out, right? Garbage in, garbage out, whatever
Right.
variation you've heard. Like we've heard that for years and years in the fleet industry, and it's very true. If you're trying to take data out in reporting and use it for actionable, information to make decisions on your fleet, if the data going in is poor, the data coming out is going to be poor, right? So we always recommend using that, national code set, whether it's NAFA class codes or APWA class codes, standardization when we're putting in makes and models. you try to run a report for Chevys, and if you've got them in there 3 or 4 different ways, you're going to be missing some data, right? And so your data coming out is going to be poor. All right. And then obviously repair code analysis. So if we're looking at shop operations and things like that, if we're not using a standard repair code, or the technicians are using their own thing, it can really skew our data and kind of create some chaos, right?
Well, I've seen some amazing things happening too with codes where even like down to your asset, you're having your asset number, asset description may have part of the VIN number in it. It may have part of the classification in it. It might even have like your make, model, and year information, just so that you could real quickly, easily run a list, run a report, and be able to see exactly the data set that you're looking for if you don't have the tools to do that offhand. Now, obviously we do, but
Yeah.
there's always a good way to standardize to make your data more understandable.
Yeah, and people get very creative with the things that they do when they don't have an FMIS, and then
Mhm.
coming to an FMIS, and we kind of make it a little more simple. It's a change for them, and they have a hard time understanding how we can roll things up for reporting by doing that. So it's always interesting, right? And then lastly about FMIS is data mining. We try to we want to bring all this data into a centralized system with your telematics, your fuel, accounting and ERP systems, HR systems, and any other of those external sources that are coming out with AI and things these days. There's a lot of data coming in. So, data mining, data management is becoming more and more important. I thought it was 5 years ago because telematics and stuff were exploding, and man, it's just over the last 5 years gotten even more incredible with the amount of data that's coming in. So, very important to sift through the data. We're going to show you a couple tips and tricks today on how to get to the important stuff. All right, so let's talk about some best practices. Now, most of these are going to be fleet best practices. If you have an FMIS or not, we're going to show you how using an FMIS will increase the best part of the best practice and help make your life a little bit easier. So the number one thing that I always like to talk about, it's the number one fleet metric we talk about at RTA. You've heard all of us talk about it. If you listen to the podcast, Mark, Josh, everybody talks about this. All right, and it's asset availability. Whether it's downtime or availability, whichever way you track it, that is your number one, the granddaddy of them all. It's the whole reason we exist in fleet, right? Is to make sure that those assets are available to the organization. So best practice number one is always track it. If you're not doing it, I would highly encourage you to start. Okay. Now, all of your other metrics within fleet will have an effect on availability. So start tracking availability, right? And you can watch that go up or down. And then you can start to look into your other metrics and figure out what's causing availability to go up or down, right? And there's a lot of other metrics, but this is the number one to start with, okay? So think about, if we're starting to track this and if we have a good FMIS, the system is helping us do this in an automated way. For us at RTA, we have a work order status that we can automate and updates to our asset status. So we're getting live asset status updates. And then with that, we add another layer called notifications, right? We can send notifications to drivers or operators or supervisors to let them know that the asset status has changed. So maybe it was currently being repaired and now it's available, right? We're going to reduce those phone calls for you, okay? And we're going to reduce the shop lurker, right? Everybody's got that person that comes into the shop because the shadow changed on their vehicle in the parking lot, so they think it moved and you guys have fixed it, and now they're here every 5 minutes and they're like, hey, is it done yet? Right? Everybody has that guy that comes into the shop and breaks down shop operations. So, we can help reduce that stuff, right? Lock the shop out, keep people out, automate this stuff. We're reducing those phone calls, reducing the interruptions. It's just going to make things more efficient. All right, best practice number 2, use the FMIS for PM tracking. Now, literally, again this week, right, that same spreadsheet fleet had no way of really tracking PMs. They would put a decal on the odometer to say, hey, this is when you need to bring it in for an oil change. Now, I don't know about you guys, but all of the fleets that I've managed, 90% of the drivers aren't paying attention to that, right? You don't even see that thing until something happens and it breaks or it won't start, and then you tow it in and it's like 10,000 miles past the PM, right? So best practice, track your PMs, do it digitally, set it up in a good FMIS that, you should be able to create alerts, notifications, some type of of electronic tracking to help you guys know when this stuff is due and hopefully send notifications to those drivers, right? So that's going to improve your compliance, right? Reduce breakdowns, okay? And I've seen it multiple times where you're out at the fleet and they're not doing this practice and the breakdowns are through the roof, right? Trucks are getting towed in, 4 or 5 times a week, and it's just out of control. So, tracking within an FMIS, you're going to improve that compliance, right? Reduce the breakdowns. Hopefully we can set up those alerts, right? And a good FMIS will allow you to set up those alerts, not only to the fleet, but to the operators and say, hey, you got a PM due soon, right? That's their first indication. And then triggering when it's due right now. Hey, it's due now. And then start letting them know, hey, you're past due, okay? So that stuff's going to help, provide accountability to say, hey, we've been notifying you, and track that stuff and get those paper trails. All right. So I'm gonna hand it off to Dallin. I'm gonna let him show you guys how RTA's Fleet360 can set up and create some of these automations and really make this stuff a little bit easier for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of those ideas. I mean, we talk a lot about breaking down the barriers of communication, right?
Right.
We talk about how automation and automated updates. I really, as a technician, as a fleet manager, even as a director of public works, I really just want to be able to do my job. And so, in doing my job, I'd love to have these automations set up to where the right notifications are going out, like you mentioned. I'm getting the alerts. I'm getting the preference or sorry, the preparation of what may be coming, so that I can schedule my time, my employees' time, and so things like you'd mentioned, talking about availability. Now, usually availability comes down to one of two things: it's either available or it's unavailable. But
Right.
being able to set that for the vehicle versus being able to just, as a technician, I'm receiving my vehicle. I'm now going to start working on that vehicle. And based on the progress or the progressive steps that I'm taking, now I'm going to be able to see, okay, well, what was the uptime and downtime for that asset? That's going
Yeah.
to help me it's going to help me as a tech because I'm accountable for that time, but it helps my supervisor. It helps the director that I'm under, that our team is under, understand what's going on
Yeah.
with that asset and my entire fleet as a whole. But it really comes down to those practices. And so
Mhm.
we have within Fleet 360, just to show and illustrate some of the topics that Nathan's been talking about, we have the ability to customize and create any potential status. And right now I'm looking at a vehicle status and just want to show that when I mark this vehicle as, say waiting on an outside vendor, that's going to mark my vehicle as down. It's unavailable. I can't get to it. I can't send it out on a call, whatever it might be. And so the status is going to help me consider that downtime and availability. But more than that, talking about that technician, putting on my technician hat for a second, when I go through and look at my work order statuses, now as a tech, I may or may not have the right or the capability, the ability, or the permission, there's the word I'm looking for, to reset my vehicle status. But as I'm planning out for what these vehicles are going to be doing when they do get to me, something like waiting for a sublet vendor, I have the ability to say, okay, well, when this work order that I have rights and responsibility over goes into a waiting or with sublet vendor status, I want to update that vehicle status to also show waiting on outside vendor, which we just looked at is unavailable. And then there's more automations that come into place as well. Things like setting my work order status. It's currently open when it's with a sublet vendor. I also want to track that time as well. And so being able to see things like my status, do my progress and progress through my work order steps, it has influence on other areas as well. Now, uh, outside of the work order status automation, we also talked about PM tracking and push notifications. Now, all notifications together, if I look down in my organization, I have contacts that I want to be able to have set up. These may be my operators, these may be my supervisors or my support techs. This could be the director himself, department heads, whoever they might be. I want to be able to set up these contacts to be able to receive notifications for whatever assets or whatever group that they are responsible for. Now, we talked about, excuse me, like PMs. I have coming due soon, due now or due today, and past due. Those statuses may, based on my role, I may need to be notified, but also maybe me as the operator, I need to know that it's coming up due in the next 200 miles, let's say, or the next 14 days. Or as the supervisor, I need to know when it's due today. Maybe switch those roles. I mean, that's up to the organization. But being able to know when a PM is coming due soon, due now, or past due, As the operator, I might receive all three of those notifications. The operator and supervisor maybe need to get the due now, and the operator, supervisor, and the director of fleet need to know when it comes past due. We can essentially filter up that level of importance to make sure that we're not running into that detail where, oh, we're actually 1,000 miles past, and now there's all sorts of issues or potential issues that could have caused those breakdowns. And so being able to receive those notifications via email, text message, or push notification, and they just come right into the application right up at the top. Asset 9 is almost due for a PM service at PMB. And so that came out 22 hours ago. I'm now aware, and I can make actions to get that vehicle in. More than that, being able to set this is actually a brand new, so quick peek behind the scenes, a brand new feature that we're just releasing actually tomorrow for inside of Fleet 360 is the ability to customize out that PM due status or that PM due notification point. And so across the fleet, I may have, say a service bus or a school bus here, may be one of those opportunities where I need to know 500 miles before it comes due. Yep, okay, perfect. This one's set on miles. But for this bus specifically, maybe this is one that is a little bit further away. I need to know, there we go. It looks like it was set to 450. I actually need to know at 600 miles before this PM comes due. So it give me a little bit more time to make sure that I can route and routine this bus in, get a replacement bus out while I'm working on it. So I can actually customize exactly at which point, how many days ahead of time, how many gallons, how many miles, how many trips, whatever your PM interval is. I'm going to customize this specific one or a specific subgroup so that I know ahead of time with plenty of time to spare how to get that PM or how to get that asset in for its PM service. All of these things are happening through those automations so that notifications are taking place, my assets are being put on their schedules, and once I receive them, the work's being created and the assets being marked down. We're trying to, again, break down those walls of communication that usually run into issues where now, perfect, I just need to do my job.
Yeah, that's a great feature, Dallin. Before we were applying that due soon to everything across the board, right? So if it was a 500-mile due soon trigger, it was happening to the entire fleet. So getting that flexibility is going to be a huge benefit, across the board there. So that's awesome. A couple great use cases before we jump into best practice number 3. Asset availability, we can display that screen in a kind of in a kiosk where it rolls through and just shows asset statuses. We can display that to a dispatch center or an operations center. And a couple of customers that I help set some of that stuff up with, trucking, is using dispatch, so only showing them vehicles that are either out of service so they know not to dispatch it, or only available so they know what they can dispatch. I've seen it set up both ways. And then also working with a utility company, they put that in their operations center so that if a truck went down, the operations people knew, hey, I can't dispatch this truck to go fix whatever utility issue we have right now because it's down. So, a couple good use cases for that stuff. And, it's widely customizable. So, it's a great tool to kind of start tracking that availability and really getting visibility of it. So, all right, best practice number 3. Number 3 and number 4 kind of tie together. They both deal with warranties. Best practice number 3 is tracking parts warranty, right? We should be tracking this stuff. There is a ton of money in warranty recovery, but also it reduces your costs and aids in vendor management. If I'm constantly getting parts from the same vendor that I'm constantly warrantying every 6 months, like I have to turn this thing in and get a new one, right? Maybe we should be buying that part from a different vendor. Okay, so there's some really good data here if we're tracking it, but if we're not tracking it, then we're losing out on that data. So it's hard to reduce cost and kind of help us with that vendor management if we're not tracking it. So 2 big things to think about, even just with parts warranty. I've watched, by watching this, when I was working at the city, we were able actually to identify when a vendor changed the manufacturer of their battery, right? It looked the same, it was stickered the same, but all of a sudden we started having issues with batteries that we weren't having before. And because we were tracking that stuff and getting the data out, we started to see this trend. And then I went to the vendor and said, hey, what happened with batteries? And they were like, oh yeah, we switched vendors. Like we get them from somebody else now. And I'm like, well, that vendor is not as good as it used to be, just so you know, which actually ultimately led us to changing our vendor for batteries because we just weren't getting the same, life out of them. And when you're running police cars and fire trucks, like that's a big deal, right? So Really good information on what you can get out of that stuff if you're tracking it, plus the money, right? So utilize your FMIS, right? It should have a system in place to help automate some of these warranty claims, right? If something's under warranty and it triggers, it should automate a warranty claim for you. And that allows you to see what you've got for claims out there and then be able to take action on those. All right, so let's go ahead and go to best practice number 4. They kind of tie in together, so I'll tell some more stories because I like to tell stories. But OEM warranties, right? OEM warranties is a billion-dollar industry. Like the OEMs are setting aside billions of dollars every year because they expect warranty claims, right? If you're not taking advantage of this, you are leaving so much money on the table. All right. At Connect one year, I was teaching a class and I just was talking about warranties, and I said, who's tracking warranties and who's willing to share, the recovery costs? One lady raised her hand. They had a fleet of like 105 assets, right? So not real big, but decent size. They were recovering like $40,000 a year between parts and OEM warranties, right? That's for 100 assets. That's huge. So whatever your asset count is, right, divide it by 100, then multiply by 40, and that's probably what you could expect to recover. It is such a big deal. All right. So not only are you saving money in having those parts replaced, but possibly the labor to fix some of this stuff, right? So two real quick stories about OEM warranties. I'll share the one where it kind of bit me because we weren't tracking warranties.
Oh, this is a bad example. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go.
Well, we got to share the bad first, and then we'll get to the good one, right? So the bad one, if any of you guys had, those, it was like 2014, 2015 to like 2017, Chevy vehicles with the LS in it, the 5.3 or the 6-liter LS, they had camshaft and lifter issues, right? If you didn't catch it in time, it would take the motors out. Like you had to replace engines. We had about 4 or 5 of them happen in about a 6-month time frame. One, we got covered under warranty because it only had like 23,000 miles. Everything else, if we'd have been tracking the warranty, had we created this, alert to say, hey, you're about to be out of warranty, and brought the vehicle in, we probably would have caught 1 or 2 of those and noticed the issue before it went out of warranty, right? So that's another thing with tracking OEM warranties, right? We can set that reminder PM so that, hey, all of a sudden you have this warranty PM pop up on your PMD list that we just talked about. Now you bring the vehicle in and give it a good once over before that warranty expires. And if there's any issues, we take it to the dealer, right? And recover that cost. So there was a couple engines that we had to replace when we were on the hook for, and some of them were only maybe 1,000 miles out of warranty. But
Oh, wow.
when Chevy's getting hit with a bunch of stuff like that, they're not going to give you any goodwill. I don't blame them, right? We should have been doing our part, and if we'd have been doing our part correctly, we probably would have got that warranty taken care of. So I can't stress to you how important this is, and if you're not doing it, right, or your FMIS doesn't give you the ability to do this, ours does, and start setting them up. Now, going backwards to set them up might not be worth it, but as you're putting new assets in the system, start setting warranties up now, right? It's better to start somewhere, and sometimes going backwards is a little daunting. So again, big money recovery. Now let's share the positive side of this. Now, I still wasn't tracking warranty. However, we had an ambulance in the air. I was walking the shop one day, and I'm talking to a technician, and I said, hey, what's the issue? What's going on with the ambulance? And he said, oh, the starter's out. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, but while I was in here looking at the starter, I noticed we have some exhaust studs broken. So now we have an exhaust leak. And I was like, oh. And if you've ever done exhaust studs, if you've ever been a technician or you understand what that takes, extracting broken exhaust studs is like the arch enemy of most technicians, right? It is a painful job. It takes a lot of time, and there's not a lot of room. It's just not fun. And this ambulance had like, I don't know, 60,000 miles on it maybe. And I said, just for the fun of it, call Ford, call the dealer, because I know on some of this stuff they were doing extended powertrain warranties up to 100,000 miles. And I said, just call and ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. So he called the Ford dealer and he goes, you know what? They're actually going to cover it. They're going to cover the starter and the exhaust manifold issues. And I was like, man, look at that. So we saved the money on the starter. It was like a $600 starter plus all the labor and the broken bolts in the exhaust manifold. So that was a huge win for us. A few $1,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're doing that every week or a couple times a week, that really adds up at the end of the year. So
Well, right. And once you know that it works, now
yeah,
you're going to feel a little more entitled to do it again the next time or to check. That what if becomes more like a best practice than
right.
a maybe we could or that's not something we do here.
Yeah. So please learn from my mistakes and just track your warranties. It'll save you in the end.
Well, and what's worst case? You have warranties enabled or you have some way to get the alerts for it. Maybe even spread a wide net and turns out, oh, actually, the warranty notification of the detail that I got doesn't cover this. But I'd
Right.
still rather check and find out that it's not covered than miss something, especially something massive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk. These are some of the best practices that are the one of the best, some of the best money savers, some of those practices that exist within an FMIS. So, talking about how do those practices work within Fleet 360? Now, first of all, we talked about two different types of warranties. We talked about part warranties and OEM. First, I'm going to go over kind of the more OEM, either bumper to bumper or, as Nathan mentioned, extended warranties that can be on specific components of your assets. Now, it's as easy when I have my assets set up. It's a flag. It's a checkbox. It says we're tracking warranties. You put in the details of what are the components, how long. I won't go through that whole process. But in the end, what I'm looking for is okay. I have a vehicle here. I'm going to create a work order for it for whatever the purpose is, and I want to be notified right in the beginning. There we go. Say, I just left my warranty 2 minutes ago. I want to be notified right in the beginning that I have an active OEM warranty. It gives me the details of my vehicle and it's going to check. First of all, I'm obviously knowing the warranty is active is one thing, but secondarily, am I a technician that is certified to work on this vehicle? And your shops can become certified to do your own job. If I say no in a case like this, I'm not certified to work on a Toyota warranty vehicle, then I'm going to have my little toggle when I create my line that I'm essentially creating an outside job. I'm going to send this back to the vendor, whichever certified shop is going to be working on it. And obviously, if I say yes, it's going to go ahead and let me work on this job internally. Now, every time I create an OEM job, whether it's or flag a warranty at all, whether it's for the parts or the labor, I'm going to automatically create inside of Fleet 360 a, where are my parts? There we go. I'm automatically going to create a warranty claim. And so those claims are going to be set up and structured. And again, this is something that if I'm just getting started or just launching off my warranties, I may have a nice massive list in here because my practices aren't caught up or aren't in place. But all I want to be able to know is, okay, do I have a warranty open? What is the status of that claim, whether it's a part, whether it's the labor. And as I'm going through and showing this as a pending warranty, submitting it to my vendor, receiving whatever claim amount back that I can. Maybe it is a full, $60 recovery. Maybe I only get half back. Maybe it's completely on the labor side, and I'll update that on the work order. Or from time to time, that claim was denied. Again, I'd rather go for the low hanging fruit. I want as many opportunities as possible to save and then when I send the vehicle in and it turns out, oh, well, upon warranty inspection, it actually wasn't this component, it was this other one, we don't cover it. That's fine. I'd rather check and find out than miss it altogether. And in the end, once I follow through that process, that's going to be a closed warranty. Now, we try to make it as easy as possible for that end user, whichever part manager, whichever shop manager is fulfilling these claims, being able to create a PDF to attach to your own personal email, or just directly email that vendor if I have their contact details. And so, number one, triggering those warranties based on basic setup. And number two, being able to fulfill the warranty claim process. Now, the other side of that I did want to show were the parts. We had kind of a little screenshot of it in Nathan's presentation a second ago. But if I were to look up, say, an individual part that I know has a warranty attached to it, or if I don't know it has a warranty attached to it and I want to go through and find the details, all I need to know based on that warranty trigger, RTA is going to do all of the heavy lifting. I just need to know, is the warranty turned on? Is it enabled? And when enabled, how many miles and or how many months? As long as that trigger is set, anytime I post this part of this piece of warranty into any of my assets, regardless if the OEM warranty is turned on, now we're just talking about the part warranty. If I am replacing this component within the next 36 months under its VMRS code, under its previous historical postings. If it's within 36 months, I'll get the same thing. A pop-up that happens, let me know, hey, this part is under warranty. You have a claim created. And so as long as that automation is taking place for me, I really don't have to stress and worry about, how important it is to track warranties. I'm just going to rake in the recovery.
Yeah, it's, there's some initial setup, and it's like that with anything, right? Some initial setup goes a long way. Spending a few hours doing something up front pays dividends in the end. And so, a lot of people overlook some of this stuff because setting up an OEM warranty on every asset that I put in the system can be daunting, right? So, we got some tools when you add assets, templating assets and things that'll bring that stuff across. But, it's well worth the money in the end. Warranty recovery is such a huge missed opportunity that I see so many fleets not taking advantage of. And it's just so easy to get started and really start to see the benefit to it. So, I encourage you, use my failures in that, stories to hopefully spark some interest in doing that, and you will see some really good return on investment for those.
And what is it, the wise that prey on the experience of others?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Learn from my mistakes. Don't make my same mistakes, right? Share my failures so that you guys can learn something. So, all right. So best practice number 5, scheduling regular reports. So, a good FMIS again will allow you to schedule and automate reporting. Obviously, this is going to save a ton of time. And then the other nice thing too is pair that with creating custom reports if those are needed, and then being able to automate those as well. I have sat with many fleets across the country. I sit with a lot of fleet admins, and this is probably one of the biggest asks that I still get is like, hey, how do we automate reporting? How do we create custom reports? And honestly, just like I was saying, if we spend a few hours really going through and customizing what reports we need every month or every week or every day, whatever it might be, and we take the time and we set these up and then we put them on a schedule, the system's going to automatically run those and email them out, right? And whatever format you want them in, it's going to send them to whoever they need to go to. We have the ability to customize that scheduling if things change. But again, I've sat with multiple admins across the country and gone through and just created some custom reports for them. One lady I sat with, their finance had some really interesting asks about oil usage and all this kind of crazy stuff, honestly, that I'd never seen before. But she was like, yeah, I probably spend 6 to 8 hours, the first couple days of the month just building this report and getting the information to them. And I was like, okay, well, let's just see if we can build it in a custom report and then we can just automate it, right? And so we spent about an hour. We built this report. We set it on a schedule to run every month. And she was like, that's 6 to 8 hours I just got back every month, right? Literally an hour and a half of time. We got it set up and done. So think about that across your entire organization. Like, who's asking for what information? Can we create a report and automate it, right? If somebody's asking for, hey, I want to know what the asset status is of our assets every week. Well, that's a pre-built report. Go in there, filter it to just that customer's assets and put their email in and schedule it to go every Monday morning at 7 a.m., right? You literally don't have to touch it again unless that person doesn't want it or you need to update an email address or whatever the case is, right? It's going to save you guys a ton of time. Plus, we don't have the issue of trying to recreate the reports every month and making those mistakes, right? So we're going to reduce the mistakes and we're going to automate it to save you time, save them time. They don't have to call and ask for it every month, right? Because you forgot. You literally build this thing out, set the schedule, and forget about it. Okay, the system will run the report, get the current data, and send it out. Okay. Now for me, first of the month came around before we had automated reporting and scheduled reporting, I would always forget to run reports, always. And then it was like the 10th of the month and people are like, hey, remember those reports you were supposed to send? And I was like, yep. So then I would have to go in and spend, an hour running all these different reports, saving them, making sure I was emailing to the right people. So, this is a huge time saver and it's definitely a best practice that I recommend if you have the ability to do this within your fleet software. All right, so with that, I'm going to talk about utilizing custom dashboards as well. We talk about fleet metrics all the time. We talk about all the data coming in. Now, having a pre-built dashboard, and having multiple dashboards is great. You get good information at a high level, and it's, color-coded and graphs and really good information to see quickly. But I'm going to push this even further and say you utilize custom dashboards. And why I say that is we can really customize just the data that you want to see. If I'm the shop manager, right, I might want to see things about shop operations. If parts is a part of my responsibility, I might want to see a few things with parts, but I may not care about, things that are due for replacement as a shop manager. So utilizing custom dashboards and being able to pull in just the data points you need to see is going to make a huge difference, right? Data overload is a thing. It's been a thing for a lot of years. It's just getting worse as we get more information. So being able to customize exactly the things that we want to see that will help us in our job at a high level is going to be way, way better, right? Because then I'm not sifting through all the data. You know, being able to create dashboard alerts, whether that sends you an email or something like that, is going to be super helpful, right? If I'm tracking asset availability, I may set up an alert and say, hey, when it drops below 90%, notify me, right? If I'm the fleet manager and I get that notification, that tells me, okay, something's going on. I need to start digging in, right? We need to start looking at all these other feeder metrics of what's causing those issues. So setting this up again, it's going to help create some of that data overload that we see so much. You know, especially it's honestly getting worse. There's just so much more automations, the Internet of Things, everything's connected. Data points are getting out of control, in my opinion. So the more we can really focus on the critical few, the better off we're going to be.
Well, and I'd even go as far as to say the critical few for you.
Right.
There's going to be some universal criticals that, things like availability, utilization, things like obviously my cost and my spend. But each individual organization, I mean, the importance of a customized dashboard or customized reports is because, how often do you get that question, or how often do I get that question? Hey, my boss wants to see this. Like, well, it
Yep.
didn't originate with you. I may not be able to get a whole lot of answers out of you, but for some reason they want it. That may
Yeah.
be very specific, very custom just to your organization. And so
Yep.
being able to have even just that semi thumbs up to say, can we find that information? Yes. And now work with a specialist or take those steps to become educated to create a custom dashboard, a custom report. And then, like you said, schedule that out so that, well, okay, boss, how often do you want it? And
Yep.
have that automatically in the inbox. Now you look like an absolute champ. You're learning more about the industry and how to please your boss,
Yep.
and everybody's winning there.
Well, and you know, kind of going back to that point, the more visibility you get as a fleet within your organization, right? If you're in there asking for resources and stuff, they're going to start asking for things, right? So the more visibility you're getting as the fleet department, right? You might get more and more people asking for specific things, just to your point, right? So, you know, automating those reports to those specific people, or if they've got, you know, access into the system and you give them that, you could create custom dashboards and views for them, right? So they can get to that data quickly and not bug you every 5 minutes when they're looking for it. So it's you know it's super important more and more to have good data points and being able to share that stuff.
And one of the things, or I really want to show three examples within Fleet 360. I like options. I know that everybody's looking for something a little bit different at different points, whether it's me, my boss, his boss, or maybe I'm trying to train somebody. And so being able to get access to that data, answering those questions of, is it maneuverable? Is it massageable? Do I have some access to make changes to the reports that I have or the data points that I have? Is this something that, like we brought up, is it routine? Is it something that I just need a temperature check every week, every month, every 6 months? Things like replacement schedules. Where are we sitting here and there? And where is it going, I guess, is the next question. And so I want to show three examples of how to gather data within Fleet 360. The first one is the grids that we have set up within our program. Not only are they completely customizable, so if I wanted to do a column chooser, I see exactly which column headers are important to me and to my user. I'm logged in as myself. So these are all completely customized to me. And then each one of those column headers is able to be filtered, sorted, searched, and be able to get, the information out of it that I'm looking for. But sometimes we even have, I know there was a question that came up in the chat of, hey, what would like a status report look like? Well, there's two ways to look at that. Do I want just a stagnant report that I can't do anything with? Or do I like a live view as those statuses update, like an asset status living screen where I can actually create or toggle a gallery, and every 5 seconds, I'm going to see 10 items on each page, and it's going to auto scroll for me. This is something maybe I throw up in my shop, or if I have a waiting bay or a customer bay or something like that, be able to show status of work orders, status of vehicles. Uh, this is the type of view and the type of option that wherever I'm at, if I need to, I can go ahead and click right into one of these vehicles and get more detail, more information. So this is more of like an interactive list. I'm also able from this, as I organize my column headers, as I detail out my filters and my sorts, now almost like a report, I can export this out to a spreadsheet or export it directly out to a PDF and make that available to whoever might need to see it. And so very interactable, very hands-on way of getting the access to my data. Secondarily, not only for something like a vehicle status, but looking at those reports that you were talking about, Nathan, one of those things that I want to be able to see or run at any point are those more stagnant data points. Now, within Fleet 360, we have, I think, roughly 80, 85 reports that are automatically built in. So seeing things like my employee accountability, my productivity rates, my time cards for labor, I want to be able to see, hey, what are my DVR inspections that have come in for the past 30 days or 60 days? Give me a detail of where they were, what happened to them, more accountability, and then even seeing things a little bit more broad. We talked about using dashboards, using reports. Start at the tip of the iceberg and find out what are those data points that I now need to drill down deeper on. If I start at the very, very bottom at just an individual data point, I'm not seeing the full story. So start at the beginning of the book. And then the nice thing about these is, say something very broad, like a vehicle audit. I want to see for a certain period of time, I want to know for this subset of vehicles, where are my costs involved? What are my fixed costs that are coming out every single month? What are the totals of parts, of labor, of my recurring details? And so being able to run a report like that is fantastic. But more than that, I want to, like you mentioned, Nathan, I want to be able to schedule that report. This is something that's important for me to see, and I get a temperature check on every single month. And so on the first of every month, I go through and I schedule that. I want to put it into a specific format. Maybe it is a spreadsheet so that when it gets to me at 5 a.m. on the first of every month, I have that time from the time I get in at 5, 6 o'clock. I'm going to massage and kind of maneuver that data around, set in my own filters, maybe create a dashboard view or some tables, some grids on that detail or on that report, and then I'm going to send it to the people responsible. Again, depending on how much involvement I want to have. Or I can just, right now, I'm going to send it and email it out directly to somebody in a specific format. I don't need to schedule it. I just want to send it directly to them, whether they have access to RTA or not. We talked about custom reports. Funny story that I have when it comes to custom reports, I always love to share. I think it was about a year ago, last year, I was at a trade show and I had one of my customers, his name was David, surprisingly. I had my system up, and David walked up and he said, "Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to gather my data in this way." And he explained the situation to me. I said, "Okay, well, I don't think we have a report for that, but that's okay. We have custom reports." He said, "Well, how does that work?" So I said, "Well, let's do it." And right there on the trade show floor, he and I together, and actually, I really let him lead. At the time, I really didn't know much of what I was talking about, but he's the fleet guy. He knows his data points. He knows what he was looking for. And he was able to create, and you can tell it became a recurring meeting every single time I've seen him since then on a trade show. David came up and we together would create a custom report. And so in that span of 15, 20 minutes, now he really knows what he's doing. And that it's okay to not be that proficient in the very beginning, but that's why we have resources. That's why we have accesses. And so creating an open POs report or a PM's due in 30 days, we have those details already available, but he wanted to customize it out and drill down even deeper. So using existing reports, completely starting from scratch, or setting up something like, hey, I want upcoming reservations that doesn't currently exist within Fleet 360 to run my motor pool details. He created that custom report right there on the trade show floor. And it still follows those same rules. So if I needed to, run the report, export it, schedule it, and then there's that duplicate option and just go further steps. I like what I'm seeing. I want to see more, and I can get more and more detailed about it. So not only do we have those reports, so we have the grids, we have the reports that can be run and scheduled, and then we have those dashboard views. Now, we've shown previously the access to the Fleet 360 dashboards that are broken down by main categories like maintenance and repair, parts and warranty details. My leadership dashboards are main dashboards. And recently, we've released the capability to customize your own personal user dashboard. So this is the Dallin dashboard. I'm logged in as myself right now, and if I wanted to make any customization changes based on widgets that already exist within Fleet 360, I hit the plus button and throw it on my custom dashboard. I'm able to see exactly for my purpose what I want to see. But then also, I'm in a mood to share what's upcoming. We've recently created and built out, that should be available as early as tomorrow, user group dashboards. And so based on the role, based on the type of user, the person that you are, you're going to be able to say, okay, all parts managers within my organization, you have your custom dashboard, as well as here is what we as an organization feel are our most important KPIs, our most important data sets if you are a parts manager. Now, I expect these to take 10, 15 seconds to run because the importance of a dashboard is accuracy of data. I want the most updated information as possible. So to be able to go through and see the information for my monthly drill down costs, my open purchase orders, be able to resize and reshape each one of those. There you go, parts usage, which parts am I using the most often, down to limited, and being able to see those details at a glance and then do exactly what Nathan said, drill down from there. Now I'm going to look at, okay, my part usage, that's great. Show me a list by part names or include those part names. How about that part list and actually bring up a grid so I can go through and see, okay, well, what are my heaviest used parts? Export this data out, pull up another report and drill down to find out, well, what are my inventory levels of these parts that are so important? Am I running a proper appropriate inventory? Am I getting the best rates? Because I'm ordering a lot of these parts. I'm going through a lot of them. This is a great place to start and then drill down deeper. And that's why those other reports exist. So no matter how I'm really trying to get in and find out if I want to be able to touch and access every single point of that data, if I want a report that's more accountability based, I'm sending this information out so that we are all involved, or something that's very visual if I'm that visual learner. The other area that I wanted to hit, and I usually like to hit it as we're going over, or show anytime I show an example of Fleet 360, there was a question that came into the chat that I think is fantastic. It says, I'm just barely converting from spreadsheets to an FMIS. Here's my fleet size, and I want to know. We've never really tracked availability or utilization before. What's a good goal? We do have a tool built into Fleet 360. If I don't understand my reports or I'm trying to get more information and trying to dig down deeper, we actually have an AI bot that's built in, our AI assistant, or we call him Ron. He's our little buddy. I just threw in there, what is a good goal for vehicle downtime? And while Nathan was talking just a second ago, gave me kind of a broad overview, good goal for mount. We just want the highest available rate. I want to see it. I want to understand it. And it's really, like Nathan talked about, our number one metric for any fleet to track. We talked about that at the very beginning. So that's great. But I think the question was, what kind of rate should I be looking for? What is my availability? So I asked it to drill down even deeper. What is high availability? And a good goal for high availability is at least 95%. However, being backed by guys like Nathan, our other fleet success managers, the consulting team that feeds in and provides information to our bot here, we firmly believe that your goal should be 100% availability. We understand it's not a full reality, but that should always be the goal. And so act and react as if it is. And so getting down and drilling down deeper into your data points, if a report doesn't exist, ask a bot. Go through and take those steps to become educated and learn a little bit more because your fleet is just that. It's your fleet. We want to make sure that you're getting the metrics and details out of it that are most important to you and your team.
Yeah, it's a good point, Dallin. And there's a lot of us here with a lot of fleet experience. We're here to be a resource. Whether you're an RTA customer or not, we want to be here for a resource for you in the fleet industry. 95% is the industry KPI. I would encourage you to just start tracking it and see where you are, and then see what changes in your organization affect that and maybe increase it or decrease it, right? So you're on the right track. So, trying to get to 95% if you've never tracked it before is probably going to seem like a really lofty goal. So just track it and see where you are and see what you can do to start incrementally, increasing it.
Well, perfect. We're getting ready to sign off here. Thank you, everybody who's been spending time with us today. Thank you for allowing Nathan to share some of his great stories and giving me the opportunity to show a little bit about Fleet 360. We want to have some time here at the end for questions, but just a little bit of housekeeping. As a reminder, for those that have either seen it before or weren't aware, we do have a Fleet Success Playbook written within RTA by some of our industry experts, including our CEO, Josh Turley. If you don't have your free copy yet, go ahead and take the next 10 seconds, pull your phone out and scan that QR code to request a copy. We are happy to provide those. One of our big goals at RTA, our main goal, our purpose is to help fleets succeed. And so by providing and trying to uplift those in our industry, we want to make sure that resources like this are available. Also, if you enjoyed this webinar, please feel free to chime in to our podcasts that are happening at least once a month, I think about every other week. And so the Fleet Success Show, where we are talking about our CEO is primarily hosting with other industry experts like Mark Canton, Steve Saltzgiver, Fleet Hall of Famer, and being able to hear about the industry issues that are happening, not specific to RTA. And you don't have to be an RTA customer to really enjoy and appreciate this. I'm sure anybody who's listened in the past can attest to that. So start listening today. Another free podcast, another way that we're trying to uplift the industry. And then lastly, again, you don't have to be an RTA customer. In fact, we sometimes encourage you when you're not to take advantage of the RTA consulting opportunities. RTA does have an additional consulting arm outside of our FMIS that's specific to fleets. You want help? That was a great question earlier about what's my utilization or where should it be. You're just getting started and want to understand a little better. How can I track it now using spreadsheets? How can I track it with that FMIS? What should my goals be? And better, how can I get there? You have those industry related questions. RTA Consulting is available to help create a plan, follow it through the next month or the next year. We want to make sure that you have access to information. And again, over 350 years of experience, I think we're closer to 400 years of experience now within these walls. We definitely want to be an asset to your team. All right, so jumping into some of the questions that currently exist. Thank you for those that have submitted questions. See what I can do to go through these. First of all, yep, we talked about the spreadsheets to FMIS and how to track or what's a good goal for setting and tracking downtime. 95%, or really we're trying to go for a goal of 100, but start where you're at and make those goals. And Nathan, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong here. Figure out where you're at right now and figure out what you need to do to take the next step. If you're currently at 60% availability or 35% availability, start looking at that utilization and figure out, okay, how can we get to 50? How can we get to 55? And keep working your way up.
Yep.
Nathan, I'm going to toss this next one over to you. Do
Okay.
we find FMCs do a good job at watching for warranty for fleets?
Some, I have some limited experience using an FMC in a past role, managing a national fleet. It was hit or miss. Some of the guys that or people they had that were screening work orders were fairly decent at that. I would say more got through that should have been warranty than they probably caught in my experience. And we've actually done some consulting work for organizations that use FMCs to actually audit that. How well are they doing, and is the cost appropriate and things like that. So, I think you should be watching them and definitely asking those questions. In my experience, they do catch some, but they're not catching everything.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Next question we had on here is about the RTA Fleet 360 program. We are still working on some of the fueling capabilities, including on-site pumps and tanks. Those should be due to release for sure before the end of this year. Actually, I think they're completed. We're just going through our final phase of testing. So thank you for asking about the pumps and tanks. Should be coming very soon to Fleet 360. The ability to integrate your system with other systems like SAP. Thank you, Hazim. We do have an open API, so getting access to other programs and integrating with other programs is fairly easy, very straightforward for us. A lot of times it's just scheduling time. If you do have Fleet 360 currently, scheduling time with our level 2 agents or our integration specialists. They'll put you on the list, and as we get to it, we can jump in. We do have plenty of route or routine integrations currently in place. Sometimes systems like SAP, when you're getting into accounting details, they're very, very customized. So there may be some professional services involved and customizing out that integration. There may be a fee involved as well, depending on what type of data you're trying to share. But with our open API and many open APIs that are out for our partners, it's definitely a conversation we can have. But like I said, SAP is not really a standard integration because everybody wants to do something unique. So thank you for the question, and that we can talk offline about that a little bit more. Jennifer, can you show what vehicle status report might look like? Oh, there we go. My boss likes to see a report, currently in Excel, to show them what vehicles in the shop are down, the reason they're expected at a due date. So yeah, I kind of went over that toward the end there when we were talking about reports, whether you're looking at a status grid, where you can massage and maneuver that data and export that out, running a vehicle status report, or even creating a dashboard for availability and jumping to that toggle to be able to see, okay, well, for my available, my unavailable, setting my filters, maybe I just want to see unavailable and my reason. All those are options that can show status currently. And then Hazim, also, do you have look in technician efficiency? Yep, we do have technician efficiency, availability, activity rates, productivity. Those are all standard reports within Fleet 360. All right. For those still watching for the within the chat there were a couple of questions about how to get access to today's webinar to possibly share with other team members or reflect back on. Keep your eyes on your email over the next few days, depending on how long it takes to render. We are going to be sending out some more information about how to get the download of this webinar. We're really grateful again for all those that ended up showing up today. And if you have further questions, feel free to email Nate or myself, or reach out to our support team at support@rtafleet.com if you do have questions about the programs itself. That's also a great starting point if you want to get more information about consulting, about setting up an integration, about getting access to training. Our support almost works sometimes as receptionists to be able to get you the area that you want to be in. But we are wanting to help you. It looks like, oh, and I didn't scroll down far enough. We have a couple of last minute questions that came in that I will try to make time for here. Are there any current customers using RTA Fleet 360 for managing heavy equipment and mixed fleets? I'd like to understand how it's being used in real world fleet operations. Absolutely, Michael. We do have a grand array of customers that are using Fleet 360 from government and government adjacent entities, construction, yellow fleets. So much of it just comes down to what are the job codes that we want access to. For the most part, many of the shop practices are going to be the same almost universally. I'm not going to guarantee almost universally. I want to be notified when PMs are coming due. I need a way to act and react when I have services that are requested or required through an inspection. And then I need the capability to create jobs around the emergencies, the breakdowns, the road calls, areas like that. And so all those capabilities do currently live within Fleet 360. Usually the biggest question we get is, okay, well, do you have the job codes for this type of equipment? If it doesn't exist on the VMRS list, which we do get, our standard VMRS list comes from the American Trucking Association. So it is pretty vast, up to, I think it's like 62 or 63,000 codes, possibly. We don't obviously give those out to everybody. That's not a standard. We usually try to build those out for your system or for your company based on your organization or based on your industry. But those are also completely editable as well. So if there are another subset of job codes that are needed, we can get those implemented as well. Next question. I'm trying to produce a PM report for next month, but when I run the report, only shows up to 8.5. That would be a great request. Jump out to our support team and find out what there might be a system lock in place or a future date. I know we have system switches in each and every system that may prevent you from going and looking out further in the future. Might just be something for your specific system we need to look at. Next question. We use Team Dynamics as a work order system within with RTA to be able to pull data from their system. I'm not familiar with Team Dynamics. It would really come down to which data points Team Dynamics is running. Like I said, we do have an open API, so being able to share data back and forth is possible as long as that program will work with it. That again may be a question for our support team, and move on the next step to our integration specialists. All right, time check. We're okay for a couple more. And I apologize if we're not going to have time to get to all of these. Thank you, everybody, for submitting those questions. Further questions, or if we need to dive in deeper, go ahead and feel free to reach out to Nate or I. Are there any plans for the future integrating with an AI assistant that will be able to perform tasks given to any or automate things? For example, ask the AI bot to create a custom report using specific parameters. Absolutely, Nathan. Thank you so much for asking. That is next gen or next step as far as our AI tool. We've had great feedback and response for the call and action, or the question and answer that we currently have set up. Actions are going to be the next steps. And for some of that, we're waiting on our AI tool to be built out to the point where that's possible. And the other side is allowing our team the freedom to get into that point. A lot of our focus right now is on current industry expectations and current industry standards. We will be moving within the next year. I would even say within the next 12 months, we're going to be making huge strides into creating new things never before seen. So that would be one that would probably fall a little bit closer into that list. And I think it's a wonderful idea. Built-in AI to create custom reports would be very useful. Yes, perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. RTA customer support have been great in building custom reports for me. However, sometimes there'll be occasions where I need to create one in a matter of minutes. Using AI would be great. Awesome feedback on that. Thank you, everybody. Well, perfect. We are at time. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Special thanks from Nate and I for being in attendance. Be on the lookout for our next webinar. We do have these coming in two different series, one strictly for leadership and others for within the FMIS 101 series. So be on the lookout and sign up for our next one. In the meantime, I'm Dallin Dastrup, and thank you for attending us today.